Hi guys, welcome to part one of the Abbasid Dynasty. You're going to use this presentation to complete your notes. I'm going to try and keep it to about 15 minutes, so bear with me. All right, so first thing, please pay attention to the map of the Abbasid Dynasty. This shows the caliphate in the 9th century. That's about the height of the empire. It's after this period that the Abbasid Dynasty will start to kind of break apart, which is what you're seeing in this map, and begin a process of decline. But up until this point, they're going to play a very significant role in the political, economic, and social development of the world. Here we go. All right, so first thing, I'm going to have you guys watch this quick little video. So pause me, watch the video. It's linked in the sources, and answer the questions on your worksheet. It just really is going to be talking about what caused the conflicts between the two groups in the Abbasid dynasty. So we call this the Second Civil War. And essentially the cause was that there was a disagreement over who was going to be Muhammad's successor. Why do I feel like this is? So first group is that believed that it was Hussein, who is Ali's second son, rebels against Umayyad rule in 680. Ali was Muhammad's son-in-law, and people who follow Ali believe that he is the true successor to Muhammad because he was directly related to Muhammad. Unfortunately, it didn't end up going well for him, and many of these warriors are going to defect, leaving him, and it's going to be 72 of his warriors versus 10,000 of the Umayyad dynasty warriors. Hussein's head is actually going to be chopped off and sent as a token of victory to the leaders in Damascus. So resulting is going to be, if you want to watch this video. All right. So the end result is going to be Islam is going to have a schism, and we'll talk about that in a second. We got two factions, the Shia, and remember, Shia Ali. That's how you remember this, Shia Ali, also sometimes called the Shiite factions. They believe that only the descendants of Ali are the true rulers of Islam. Right? The Sunni are the descendants of the Umayyad caliphs. So the Sunnis outnumber the Shia. About 85% of the modern Muslims are Sunni versus the remainder being Shia. The Shia believe that the holy leader, the Imam, is the important person who rules the society, whereas in the Umayyad dynasty, the Caliph, the secular leader, holds the most power. The job of both of these individuals is to keep the Ummah, or the people of the Muslim people, the followers, united. Oops.
When we watch the news and see reports...
We're going to skip that. You guys are going to watch that on your own. All right. So what brought about the decline of the Umayyad dynasty you learned about already. And really a lot of it had to do with corruption. As the leadership continued, and because the Umayyads created a hereditary caliphate, every successive leader was a little bit more corrupt than the previous one. They also were not a big fan of converting people to Islam, and that's going to create economic differences between those who were born Muslim as Arabs and those who converted later on. Remember, the Umayyads were not big on conversion. And so people who were conquered in North Africa and Mesopotamia who did convert really were not treated well under the Umayyads. So the next person that we have here is a man by the name of Abu al-Abbas. He is supposedly descended from Muhammad's uncle. He seizes control of Persia and Mesopotamia. He actually ends up destroying Umayyad forces. And then in an attempt at peace, he has this big banquet to try and have peace, and instead ends up slaughtering every remaining member of the Umayyad clan. Only one Umayyad prince survives. He flees to Spain and is welcomed into the city of Cordoba. And the Umayyad Spain will remain separate from the Abbasid dynasty, kind of as its own independent caliphate. All right. So when we're looking at Islamic rule in Spain, isn't this a cute little thing here? Spain does play a very significant role because it's located at the farthest end of the empire. The caliphate is going to have a connection with the Mediterranean Sea. Cordoba, the main city in Spain, is going to become a massive center of learning and trade, And this is where like the scientific revolution and the Renaissance are going to have their groundwork in this particular area here. Under Islam, the Umayyad rule is going to be very prosperous and continue to trade throughout the Mediterranean Sea while remaining separate from the Abbasid dynasty. All right, so another conflict that the early Abbasid Caliphate had was with China, believe it or not. And this is actually the only instance of the Abbasid dynasty actually trying to expand its territory. So all the way over here, right? So if we kind of look here, these are all of the different major battles. Talis is located right here. This was an area under the control of the Tang Empire in China, and we'll learn a little bit more about later. Although the Abbasids win the battle, they don't really pursue expansion because they got something far more valuable out of this conflict. And that was the ability to make paper. It is believed that the Abbasid dynasty was able to capture several Chinese prisoners and basically force them into telling them the secrets of paper making. This is going to be incredibly important during the Abbasid dynasty because it's here where the paper industry is going to completely expand. The Caliphate's going to set up these paper mills in all of these different cities, and unlike the Chinese, whom paper was really more something that was used by the elite, in the Arab Caliphites, it's going to be used by everybody. The Quran is going to be quickly written down, making it a far more historically significant document because people who are writing it remembered Muhammad or were connected to Muhammad in some way. And because ink is absorbed very quickly into paper, it makes it a much more permanent solution and cheaper to spread. So you can kind of see here, this is an illustration from China showing kind of the process of making paper. And then from this map here, you can see how quickly China, how it spread. So here's this 750 AD where the Islamic forces capture that caravan, and you can see how it spreads throughout Europe if you sort of follow this map here. All right, so paper making, super important. All right, Abbasid dynasty. One of the first things that the Abbasid leaders do is they move the capital city from Damascus, which was located here on the Mediterranean Sea, to Baghdad on the Tigris River. This central location is going to give them tremendous economic advantages. It's going to give them connections not only to the Mediterranean Sea, but also to the Silk Road and also into the Indian Ocean. And it's going to be here that Baghdad has really become this cultural hub. And we're going to see blending of Persian, Arab, Byzantine societies. A whole ton of ideas are going to come into this city due to the leadership. And we're going to see kind of a more bureaucratic model of government, even though it's not always going to work for them. So here is the city of Baghdad, the ancient city of Baghdad. And you can see how incredible it must have looked in its heyday. It was designed to be a fortress, very similar to Constantinople. And here, located in the center, is the home of the Caliph, right? And you can see here, like this is the Tigris-Euphrates River off to the side here. And at its height, it's believed that Baghdad had a population of about 1 million people. So within 100 years, incredible. So there's an article here if you're really interested and you want to learn a little bit more about the importance of Baghdad and its foundation. You can click on the link located in Classroom. All right, so we do see some changes to political structures here under the Abbasid dynasty. As we said, it became more bureaucratic, but at the same time, the power of the caliph actually was reduced because the caliphs began to rely more on their Persian chief administrators known as the viziers or the wazir. Probably familiar with this. If you've ever seen Disney's Aladdin, Jafar is actually a vizier, and you can kind of see they sort of isolated the caliph and became the in-between or the go-between. And so one of the things that the Abbasids do that benefits a lot of non-Arab Muslims is that they allow all Muslims to hold civil and military posts. This was different from the Umayyad dynasty, who did not allow converted Muslims to accelerate in the political and military regime. So you kind of got, there was like a glass ceiling if you weren't an Arab born into Islam. We start to see the Umayyads begin intermarrying between the Arabs and the Abbasids intermarrying between the Arabs and the conquered people. And local rulers are actually going to be able to gain significant status. The caliphs are going to use personal armies instead of um, political armies, I guess, kind of similar to what the Romans did during the later years in the 3rd century crisis. These became personal bodyguards who were solely loyal to the caliphs. On the downside of this, though, it limited military conquest. In fact, the last and only real expansion was at the Tang Dynasty at the Battle of Talis. And this is going to hurt the Abbasid dynasty, because without conquest, there's no spoils of war. All right. One of the other things that's going to happen here under the Abbasid dynasty is conversion. We're going to start to see massive numbers of people convert to Islam throughout the empire. And a lot of them are going to convert peacefully because they were either won over by the Islamic beliefs and the advantages that the converting to Islam had for them. So Christians and Jews might convert because they no longer had to pay taxes. Remember, Muslims did not have to pay taxes. It also gave you a greater opportunity in education. It also opened up doors for you in terms of trade, administration, political positions, military positions. And this all is going to end up being tied to the economic growth that we're going to see throughout this time period. As we mentioned, Baghdad has become this hub of trade, and every urban city in the Abbasid Empire is going to have something called a bazaar or a marketplace. Think of it like Crossgates Mall, or the biggest mall that you've ever seen in your entire life, right? If you can't find it here, it doesn't exist. And you're going to meet merchants from all over the world, bringing goods from all over the world. Goods that are going to come from all the way from China are going to pass through these bazaars and make their way into other parts of the world. Goods unique to the Middle East, like glass and carpets and spices and textiles, a golden slave from Europe, golden ivory from Africa, and gemstones and spices and silks and ceramics from India. And you can see that these trade networks are incredibly interconnected, and all of the resources that moved in and out of these cities. So every dot that you see here is a major urban center. So I would say pause this for a moment and kind of look at all of the different goods that made their way throughout the empire. All right, last but not least, we have here some diffusion that's going to take place. We're going to see a lot of new crops make their way from different parts of the world. And this is important because most of the area that we're looking at here is located on the same latitude, meaning that the climate is fairly similar. So crops can transfer across fairly easily. As these crops make their way around, we're going to see more planting seasons available, more food is going to be available. More food means more people. We're going to see the rise of the merchant class in a lot of the Middle East. In fact, Muslim merchants had an incredibly high social status compared to other merchants in other countries, like in China, where the merchants were considered the lowest. We're also going to see new inventions make their way from east to west, like the camel saddle, the compass, paper, the astrolabe, and the triangular lateen sails, which we're going to see on ships that are used pretty much throughout the Indian Ocean, the dhow, which looks like this. All right. So these are vessels. This triangular sail allows the sailor to catch the wind in crosswinds. So in other words, they can sail in either direction. Arab merchants played an incredibly important role on all three major trade networks throughout the Middle East: the Silk Roads, the Trans-Saharan routes in Africa, and the Indian Ocean. We're going to see money spread. We're going to see technology spread. We're going to see everything spread. So the Arabs become kind of the glue of the Indian Ocean. So this trade network is going to become massively important. All right, I'm going to stop here and I'll pick up in my next video.